please join me in warmly welcoming our dear counselor, Vahid Saberi, to address us in the plenary for session 1. Welcome, Vahid.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Mary Louise. Thank you so much. I wrote at the beginning, seeing all your faces, that how I miss being with you all. You know, the last conference where we were all together, the laughter, the joy, the hugs, the sharing of cups of tea, the chatter. And God willing, we will be able to be together again at the conferences that the House of Justice will call for the 9-year plan. But we gathered here this weekend together across this vast region that Mary Louise highlighted to express our love for Abdu'l-Baha. And Abdu'l-Baha's presence is surely with us. You know, he assured us with these simple words that remember whether or not I be on earth, my presence will be with you always. So we can be sure that he is with us. And also his exhortation that we are all so familiar with, when he asks us never to forget. He says, never forget this. Look at me, follow me, be as I am. Look at me and be as I am. You must die to yourselves and to the world so you can be born again and enter the kingdom of heaven. Behold the candle, how it gives light. It weeps its life away, drop by drop, in order to give forth its flame of light. And so, friends, this is truly a reflection of Abdu'l-Baha's life. Those where he says, look at me, and this is how his life was. And this is what we want to be like. We all want to be like Abdu'l-Baha. We cannot be Abdu'l-Baha, but our aim is to be Abdu'l-Baha-like. And this requires thought, daily action, and reflection. And it starts with a reflection on the life of Abdu'l-Baha, a true reflection that results in action. True reflection always results in action. And a profound reflection that the House of Justice has asked us to make is life-changing. It is grounded in understanding and action. And that action will only come when we deeply reflect, understand, internalize, and do something. And this is the aim of these 2 days, to really for us to reflect on the life of Abdu'l-Baha, as you have been doing, and then act. How often was it that Abdu'l-Baha and the Master told us that if we claim to be the followers of light, we must prove this by action. We express our love for Abdu'l-Baha through our acts of service. Acts of service for which we expect no name or fame. It's done in complete servitude, Abdu'l-Baha-like. And the deed itself is the reward. There are many stories about Abdu'l-Baha, but one that some of you might have heard me repeat, but I want to repeat it once again because it helps our thoughts. It helps us think about Abdu'l-Baha in our journey to be Abdu'l-Baha-like. It is a story that's told by Mr. Ziaullah Wujdani, who was a pioneer in South America, who now lives in Adelaide. He says that in my youth, in 1970s in Argentina, in the company of a local friend, we set out on a teaching trip to a far-flung region. We left with the intention to teach and with no particular destination in mind. We drove for many hours, he says, on rough roads. And when we were in much need of a break and some refreshment, we came to a little restaurant on the side of the road. And impromptu, we stopped. By now, it was late in the afternoon and the restaurant was not crowded, it was quiet. After being served by a young boy and a girl, they came and joined us at our table. And we took the opportunity to tell them about the faith, as was our intention. We had with us, he says, a photo album with pictures of Baha'i holy places and the Holy Land. And we began to turn these pages and show them the photos, speaking of the various holy places and their importance. He says that at this time, an old man with a walking aid came out of a house which was connected to the restaurant and joined us. After a few minutes, he politely asked about who we were, where were we going, because this was quite a faraway place, what was the object of our travels, and so forth. And we took the opportunity, he says, to show him the photos as well. And he looked at the photos and listened to us. Clearly, he was fascinated and interested in the pictures of Haifa and Akka, but said very little. The last photo in the album was a portrait of Abdu'l-Baha. When the old man saw this photo, he took the album from my hand, he says, and held the photo close and looked at the picture with great intent for some time. Didn't say a word though. And then after maybe a minute or two, he asked, "Who is he?" I told him it was Abdu'l-Baha. And then there was a pause. He said, "Is he called by any other name?" I said, "Yes, Abbas." There was another pause. And then he repeated for a few times the name Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. And then he said, inquiring, "Abbas Effendi?" I said, "Yes." By this time, his eyes had welled up. He held the picture close to his chest and said, "This is my Lord Abbas Effendi, the master of Akka." He got up and said, "Please join me. This table is not worthy and deserving of your visit. Please join me." As he walked towards the house and took us in. He served us with much love. And then he said, "I am Palestinian. During World War I lived in Akka as a young boy. My mother died and my father was sick. And we lived in poverty without food to eat. Like many other children and adults in Akka who lived in absolute poverty, we would walk every day to Haifa from Akka. And then this blessed man, Abbas Effendi, would cook food and serve us with his own blessed hands. And this was the only sustenance we received on a daily basis. He goes on to say that one day I was extremely hungry. I ate my food in much haste and then joined the food line again. The beloved master, while serving me with a smile, said, "You must be really hungry that you've come for a second helping." I said, "Dear master, this food is not for me. It is for my father who is sick and hungry at home." Then the master took a separate container and filled it with food for my father. He says that was what happened from then on every day. Every day, a separate container was ready for me. And I always carried back this for my father. After the war and the death of my father, Abbas Effendi, he says, was my only protector and help. He was my everything and everyone. Eventually, a ship from Europe arrived. They photographed the many orphans and lonely children, among whom I was one, and got us passports. This was our opportunity to leave Akka for a better life. But he says, I didn't want to leave. I was distressed and crying. The master wiped my tears and said, "Don't cry. You will go to a better place where you will have food, education, and clothing. I said, but Master, you won't be there. I don't want to be separated from you. And then he made me a promise, he says. He said, you will see me again. Trust in God and take this opportunity to start a new life. I only left, he says, because Abbas Effendi promised me that I will see him again. And as I had complete faith in what he said, what he told me, I left. On the day we left Accra, only Abbas Effendi was at the shipyard to say goodbye to us. He was the only hope and carer for us destitute children. There was no one else. He goes on to share many other anecdotes and stories. He then says, for years, I've been waiting to see Abbas Effendi again, as he promised. Today, you have fulfilled this yearning in my heart. There is no other yearning and wish in this life for me now. Everything that Abbas Effendi said will happen has now happened. My life has been fuller than I could ever imagine. This is my restaurant, and these two youth are my grandchildren. Every day we cook and serve those who come to our restaurant. We need to do this to earn a living. The Master fed us not because he needed to, but because of his love for us. More than the food, he says, that he served us with his own blessed hands. In reality, it was his love that sustained us and gave us hope and a reason to live. We visited him, he says, again, but he had passed away. He says that we went, this is Mr. Wojdani, he says that then when he had passed away, we went to his resting place and prayed that he may have the bounty of being with Abdu'l-Baha in his next life as well. So friends, this is a simple story from Abdu'l-Baha's life, but it gives us a small glimpse of the extraordinary life and service of the Master. This is the standard we are called to and we aspire. The standard of life of service and of complete self-sacrifice. Abdu'l-Baha spent every afternoon, never missing a day, in service to the community. What does this mean for our lives? When we look at the world today, friends, we know that when Baha'u'llah appeared, the forces needed for the world to be recreated and transformed were released at that moment. The words of Baha'u'llah unleashed this unstoppable revolutionary spiritual force, a force that is breaking down the barriers to make the world anew. Through the words of Baha'u'llah, the realities of all things, the Guardian says, were shaken. And by the means of the words, everything needed to recreate the world was made available. In regard to how the words of Baha'u'llah have recreated the entire creation, the Guardian writes, through that word, the realities of all created things were shaken, were divided, separated, scattered, combined, and reunited, disclosing both the contingent world, this world, and the heavenly kingdom, entities of new creation. These spiritual revolutionary forces, friends, are irresistible and unstoppable. They're pushing humanity towards this vision of Baha'u'llah. Humanity has no choice but to ultimately heed to the call and the life-giving message that you are sharing with the world. Right from the beginning of this dispensation, It has repeatedly been prophesied that should humanity not heed to the call of unity, love, and oneness, it will endure difficult times. So none of the things that are happening in the world today should be a surprise to any of us, nor should the things that are ahead of us. How often did the beloved Master mention that chaos and confusion will daily increase as humanity busies itself with materialism and turns its back to light and its noble purposes? How often did the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, in clear and ominous language, tell us about what is to come? So what is happening in the world and what we're experiencing is an essential element of humanity undertaking its journey towards light. So everything that's happening is for a purpose. And it is for the progress of the faith. And we should never lose sight of that. No matter what happens, we need to understand that it is for a reason. And that reason is the advancement of humanity and the cause. And that no matter how unbearable the situation becomes, as the House of Justice says, humanity will ultimately pass through this ordeal, stronger and more united. This consciousness is very important to help us to stay positive and not be confused about what is happening. And as long as we are under the shelter of the covenant, busy in service, we will be protected and assisted by the hosts of the concourse on high. Baha'u'llah himself addressed us by saying, let the fear of no one dismay thee. Trust in God, in the Lord thy God, and he is sufficient unto whosoever trusted in him. He verily shall protect thee, and in him shalt thou abide in safety. So while the world is going through its journey, we have a job to do. Our job is to be loving physicians that will nurse humanity to its full health. Abdu'l-Baha writes, O ye lovers of God, the world is even as a human being who is diseased and impotent, whose eyes can see no longer, whose ears have gone deaf, all of whose powers are corroded and used up. Wherefore must the friends, this is our job, wherefore must the friends of God be competent physicians who, following the holy teachings, will nurse this patient to health. So in the midst of all this confusion, turmoil, and change, we have to remain constant and steadfast, ever mindful of our responsibility and job. Our eyes focused on the task of what is expected of us, what's required of us, of each one of us. So we begin this period of intense preparation for the twin holy days and the centenary of passing of Baha'u'llah, of the beloved Master today, where we will see a burst of mysterious spiritual energy in the world. Today and tomorrow are most important for us all in this regard. We cannot overemphasize how important today and tomorrow are for each one of us. Between now and November, we prepare for the centenary. What does this mean? It means that we reflect deeply about Abdu'l-Baha and do our utmost to become Abdu'l-Baha-like. Today and tomorrow, we do this together across Queensland. We study and reflect together, dedicating the next few months to Abdu'l-Baha. This will have a tremendous power in this region, friends, as we all, with one vision, united in our actions, arise to serve. If you're able to take time off your professional life to serve, to arise with determination to do so in these few months, please do so. This is a period that will not come again. This is life-changing. Once this season and time passes, as Abdu'l-Baha says, it's gone forever. The time we give and the action we undertake are in fact our protection, our children's protection, The protection for the youth in this chaotic world is service. Making this decision itself, friends, is hard, as we're continually bombarded by contrary messages in society. Abdu'l-Baha often spoke of severe mental tests that would inevitably sweep over his loved ones in the West. These tests, Baha'u'llah says, take different shapes at different times and are different for each one of us. Mental tests and trials destined at various times, Baha'u'llah says, by God, is to reinvigorate, is to awaken us from our imperfect state of understanding and heal our weaknesses and failings. Unlike physical tests that you know the source and its implications, these mental tests are subtle. Often we're not even aware of them. They are insidious, but can be quite intense. For example, excessive attachment to social media, where we spend hours flicking through trivia without any tangible benefit. Hours that are forever gone. We're surrounded by incessant messaging as to how we should live our lives, or how a well-lived life looks like. These are messages that are completely contrary to what's expected of us. Extremes and unending leisure and recreation, limitless streaming of entertainment and amusement, unending holidays, more and more possessions, always more. This is the pathology of the world we live in. This is our mental test. We have been warned against them, and we cannot fall prey to them. Our job is to nurse the world from this disease. We cannot fall to this sickness ourselves. So we have to examine our own lives in this next few months as we turn to Abdu'l-Baha and measure ourselves against his life. Turn to him in assistance. All of us, every one of us feels inadequate. I can assure you that. But nothing is impossible for us, as we've been assured. As we turn to Abdu'l-Baha, he assures us of his assistance and confirmations. He repeatedly told us this. He says, day and night I entreat and supplicate to the kingdom of God and beg for you infinite assistance and confirmation. Do not take into consideration your own aptitude and capacities. Fix your gaze on the consummate bounty, the divine bestowal, and the power of the Holy Spirit, the power that converted the drop into a sea and a star into a sun. He says that how the host, the army of the Supreme Concourse is ready to assist and support us. But we can start, but what it needs to access this army of the concourse on high, and to gain this divine assistance, is to build the conditions in ourselves to receive it. And it starts with personal reflection, to purify our hearts, one's heart. Our hearts is our connection to the divine. It's the source of spiritual power. It's ultimately this pure spirit, this pure heart that will win us the spiritual victories and progress, which is the objective of our lives. Abdu'l-Baha says that in this station of purity, he says, when we arise, merit and capacity are not considered. He says, nay, rather, what matters is the brightness of the rays of the Sun of Truth, which shineth in the mirror of our hearts. That only matters. The purity of heart. And I want to share with you the story of Nora Crossley, which I am sure you've heard in various degrees. But let me make my point by sharing this story with her. Nora was born in a wealthy family. She married her poor childhood sweetheart. And he was changed by his experience of the First World War. The misery of the war afflicted him with mental illness. He was unable to work, and then started 50 years of severe hardship at home for Nora. When she found the faith, she was scrubbing floors to feed her children, penniless. She was in Manchester at the time, and the Mash'al Askar in the United States was being built. And this was the topic of ongoing discussions everywhere. All the friends were contributing, but Nora had no means of any kind to do so. But she was determined to play her part. She was penniless, as I said, and had nothing. Her only possession was her long, beautiful hair of rich auburn color, and was so long that it reached her knees. It was a favorite of artists and photographers. And she knew that hairdressers would offer a great deal of money for her hair and that natural color. So she decided to make the sacrifice of cutting her hair to sell it. But she couldn't even afford to go to a hairdresser. So she scissored her own hair. She wrote, "It was a sacrifice as it was the only beauty I had. But I had nothing else to give. So I cut my hair off." She goes on to say that it was just a simple action on my part. And all I was conscious at that time was to try to do something to please the beloved master. That's all I wanted to do. But I never dreamt how far-reaching the effects were going to be. This is the thing. We never know the impact of what we do. So Nora parceled her hair, cut her hair, parceled it, and sent it to Dr. Esselmont, along with a note. The note said this: "I am a stranger to you personally, but have recently joined the Manchester Baha'is. Mr. Hall told me about the Mash'al Askar, that you are a collector for in England. Therefore, I'm sending you my share, small though it is. You may think mine a very strange share, but I'm poor and penniless. So I have cut off my hair and wish you to sell it for me. Hairdressers are only too anxious to obtain hair my color. If it only does a little good, I shall be content. It has been a sacrifice, I admit, as it was the only beauty I possess, but it is nothing to what the beloved master has given me. He has given me a wonderful, boundless joy that no one can take from me. He has also chosen me for a great part in spreading the cause, and I'm trying to make myself as worthy as possible of his trust." Something that we all are trying to do. She goes on to say, "At present, I'm very incompetent, but he is training me in his own way. I'm only too anxious to do some little service for the cause in return. It is only a small gift, but it's all I possess. So I hope you will be able to make use of it in some way and send the proceeds to Mash'al Askar. If you ever know of anything I can do to help the cause, I will even give my life if need be, for it belongs to the beloved master after all." So Mr. Salman wrote a letter to his friend, Mr. Hakim in Haifa, about Nora's gift. Mr. Hakim shared this letter with the ladies in the household. While he was reading the letter in the garden, Abdu'l-Baha came by. Dr. Hakim wrote the letter to the master, and Abdu'l-Baha said, "I must write to her at once." And Abdu'l-Baha in that letter addresses her as, "Oh, my well-beloved daughter of the kingdom." He writes how deeply he was moved by her act, how by her act she had demonstrated detachment from this world and spirit of self-sacrifice in the path of God. Abdu'l-Baha wrote, "O my well-beloved daughter of the kingdom, this deed of thine is an eloquent testimony to thy noble spirit of self-sacrifice. Thou hast verily sacrificed thy life, and great will be the spiritual results thou shalt obtain. Rest thou confident, that day by day thou shalt progress and wax greater in firmness and in constancy. The bounties of Baha'u'llah shall compass thee about, and the joyful tidings from on high shall time and again be imparted unto thee. And though it be thine hair that thou hast sacrificed, yet thou shalt be filled with the Spirit. And though it be this perishable member of thy body which thou hast laid down in the path of God, yet thou shalt find the divine gift, shalt behold the celestial beauty, obtain imperishable glory, and attain unto everlasting life." A few months later, after this act, Shoghi Effendi, who was at university at Oxford, visited Manchester at the instruction of Abdu'l-Baha. And Abdu'l-Baha had given him a task to bring Nora gifts from him. He also read at that gathering a tablet addressed by Abdu'l-Baha to the Baha'is of Najafabad in Iran, in which tablet Abdu'l-Baha specifically mentions Nora's contribution. And Shoghi Effendi generally avoided photographs, as you friends, you know. He requested that a photograph be taken of that evening. And this is the only picture we have of Nora soon after she had donated her hair for the temple. Nora spent a week with the Guardian and considered that to be one of the greatest weeks of her life. Abdu'l-Baha, as I said, wrote the story of Nora to the friends in Najafabad in a tablet. Imagine that. Abdu'l-Baha felt that this story of sacrifice was so filled with spirit that it could inspire the friends in the cradle of the cause who had sacrificed their lives. I won't read what that tablet just for time, but you can see the sacrifice that she made, the purity of it. He said that of Nora in that tablet, he said this highly honored lady had evinced so rare and beautiful a spirit of self-sacrifice. Over the next following years, Nora's personal family problems deepened, even though her contact with the community that she had so passionately loved was limited. She was firm and deep in the cause. I just want to read with you a last note that she wrote. She says, "Throughout the long years of loneliness and trial, the beloved master has never left me. He promised that when he passed away, he would always help and guide me from the other side of life, as he had always done in this. And he has never failed me. My one hope now is that I shall never fail him." Friends, how do we evince this spirit of sacrifice that she showed? How do we not fail Abdu'l-Baha? Nora didn't think, what is it that I can do? Rather, what is it that the faith needs? What can I do to make Abdu'l-Baha happy? What does the cause need now? We cannot change the world by a small number of friends working a few hours a week. We need tens and hundreds of friends giving part-time and full-time service. The needs of the cause are great as we set out to change the world. Each and every one of us have to look at our circumstances and see how we can serve. What is our sacrifice? How can I spend my afternoons in service as Abdu'l-Baha did? Every afternoon, not once in a while. Where are the Luaget singers, the Dorothy Bakers, the Marion Jacks, the Thomas Breckwells of today? You know, Luaget Singer was studying performing arts and looking forward to a long career when she heard of the faith and left it all and gave her life to service. And Abdu'l-Baha wrote about these Ella Baileys and Martha Roots when she wrote, how many queens of this world lay down their heads on a pillow of dust and disappeared. No fruit was left of them, no trace, no sign, not even their names. And he goes on to say that not so with the handmaids who have ministered at the threshold of God. These have shone forth like glittering stars in the skies of ancient glory, he goes on to say, shedding their splendor across all the riches of time. And then he says, such souls as these profited from their existence here on earth. They pluck the fruit of life. They achieve the purpose of their existence. And now we talk about Nora. I remember her. Friends, there are many places, there is great power in movement. There are many places that need pioneers. We have still got gold clusters. Places we can go either to bury our bones as Ella Bailey did. And if this is not possible, to pioneer during this year, for a year or two, or for even a few months. You know, in this revelation, there is a great bounty that's been given to the believers, a bounty that was not present in the previous dispensation in this manner. This is the bounty of pioneering. It's a bounty of movement. There's a great bounty in movement and service. Baha'u'llah says that they that have forsaken their country for the purpose of teaching our cause, these shall the faithful spirit strengthen through its power. By my life, he says, no act, however great, can compare with it. Such a service is indeed the prince of all goodly deeds, he says, and the ornament of every goodly act. The Guardian goes on to say about that the act of pioneering requires courage and faith and perseverance. It's a great demand, but he goes on to say that its value can never be properly assessed. And the limitless reward which they who demonstrate them will receive can never be depicted, he says. Such a reward, he says, this is really important. It is not a reward in the other world. He says such a reward should not be noted as an abstract blessing confined to the future life, but also as a tangible benefit which such courage, faith, and perseverance can alone confer in this material world. Baha'u'llah says that those who attain the presence of pioneers should glory in their meeting them. And all that dwell in every land, he says, will be illumined by their memory. This is the distinction of those who move to serve the cause. Those who have moved to Mount Isa, the youth who have moved to Kingroy, Dalby, Warwick, Cook Island, Emerald. We still have Townsville as a gold cluster for us. Armadale next to us in New South Wales is a gold cluster. Friends, we need you to move, to serve this cause during this year. You know, the House of Justice wrote to a youth in Queensland that the Friends should be confident that serving in such small towns, even for a short period of time, they leave enduring effects, and the seeds they plant in the pure hearts of the populace, the House of Justice says, will surely reveal their influence in the course of their lives. By being there, by a conversation, lives are changed. I want to read to you a a letter. This is a note that an 18-year-old who just recently came into contact with the faith and how much it changed her life. She writes, before I met Baha'i religion, I had a really hard time getting out and doing things like caring for others and talking to other cultures because I didn't think I was good enough to have that sort of lifestyle. When I met the Baha'i, that changed me spiritually, the way I thought about others and how everyone can make a difference no matter what background you have. It had taught me about happiness, kindness, loving, giving, and forgiveness. There is so much more I have learned from Abdu'l-Baha's writings. It had given me strength in this world to bring forward to the next. I love teaching the younger kids ways to help the community and each other because when I was younger, growing up, I never seen that side of life. And I would love the kids to see that we are all flowers of one garden, that we are all one. I love being a Baha'i. The friends are so loving. They have taught me a lot, and I want to teach other people the faith. So friends, these conversations are life-changing. In closing, I very much recognize that our job is not easy, that the burden we carry as Baha'is is heavy. And it needs all of us to do our best, our bit, whatever it is. It's okay to be scared and unworthy. We all are scared and unworthy in so many ways, no matter who we are. Each one of us should think deeply about the responsibility we have and how we can be of service. Each one of us are only responsible for our own, for what we do. No one else can do this for us. And these words of the beloved guardian says it best. He says, each one must evaluate what his own response can be and should be. No one can do this for him. This is written on behalf of the guardian, so he refers to the guardian. He fully realizes that the demands made upon the Baha'is are great, and that they often feel inadequate, tired, and perhaps frightened in the face of the tasks that confront them. This is only natural. On the other hand, they must realize that the power of God can and will assist them. And that because they are privileged to have accepted the manifestation of God for this day, this very act has placed upon them a great moral responsibility toward their fellow men. It is this moral responsibility to which the guardian is constantly calling their attention. And he too cannot but obey the compelling force of circumstances and fulfill his paramount duty of calling to the attention of the believers their opportunity, their privilege, and their responsibilities. Friends, I will close on that note. I have no doubt in my mind that through our selfless and sacrificial efforts, Abdu'l-Baha will assist us, that no matter whatever your service is, there is no small or big service, that you will not lose this chance and this opportunity to show your love, to express your love for Abdu'l-Baha through your actions in the next few months. Allahu Akbar.